Hello, friends, and welcome back to Too Many Minis. My name's Ossie. The good people at Snot Goblin Gaming asked if I wanted to review their Kickstarter, which is launching today. It's a modular terrain system for 40k. Well, for any sci-fi game, I don't think it quite cuts it as a fantasy. It's sci-fi or maybe present day, but it's modern terrain, ruined buildings. It's world team championship compliant. I think it's probably UKTC compliant, but I tried reading their rules for terrain and died of boredom. So I can't be 100%, but I think it is. I think it makes that stuff. It's kind of like Lego. That's their kind of tagline. It's like a building toy. It's great fun to build. I'm going to show you how you build it. It's future proof in that, you know, if the layouts change or what you want changes, you can redo it. You could glue it together into bits until you could build a ruin and then glue it. But that would be really missing the point of this set. You build things, you take it apart, build new things. You can store it built, but it's super versatile. They produce some nice videos of how it goes together, give you an idea of what we're talking about. It basically works with columns, floor pieces, and walls. I'm going to show you how I got on with the kit. I'm going to show you how I painted it up and what it looks like on the table. Okay, the most essential bits of this kit are floor sections, wall sections, and columns. And they go together so well. There's some columns in some floor sections. And the wall sections all slot in between those columns. It's got really good clasp. It's very reminiscent of Lego. I don't think anything has the exact crispness of a Lego grip, but it's as close as. That's a nice little bit of ruin. They also have these great pieces for covering up the jigsaw puzzle pieces that stick out the end to give it a good look. If I had one criticism of the kit is that there is no equivalent male fudging piece to go on this end, so you're always going to have those visible gaps. I don't know if there's a plan to have them, but I would be a big fan of them. Roofs fit straight on top. It's the same fitting. There are pieces for extending the height up, but not having a floor. There are ruined pillars, ruined columns, like that, which you can slot small ruins into. There are even corner ruins. There's an excellent wide ruin piece that you can see here. It's a lot of fun to play with. It's like the toy factor is high. That's what they say in board games. The toy factor is big. My kids had to play around with it. My kids are 7 and 8. And they immediately got the hang of it. I'm like, yep, cool. We understand this. This speaks a toy language that we already know. There are open window pieces. There are double and single wall sections. It's not too fussy, so you can build it columns first, or you can slot the columns in afterwards. It kind of works both ways. The look of it is solid. They've had to make some considerations to the fact that it all needs to be reversible. So the columns have a skull that has a sort of right way up and a wrong way up, if you imagine. But the wall sections are either way. So they have upside down and right way up skulls. And I understand why they've done that. I think that's sensible. It has this exposed brick in parts, which I want to try and pick out when I paint it. The floor sections are necessarily quite thick, and they've chopped the edges to look like, you know, sort of, I don't know, damaged concrete. But it needs to be that wide to have the connectors in the bottom and the connectors in the top. And it was worth it. They had, you know, other people have done these type of kits, modular kits, and this company themselves, Snot Goblin, did a Kickstarter a few years ago with a similar kit, which I would say looks vastly inferior to me. This has been iterated. This is a major step forward, and a lot of thought has gone into this. It's very smart. It's the sort of accuracy of the parts for this is something else. And remember, this is a pre-production sample, so it's not. It could only get better, if anything. But I think they've nailed it. The guy that designed it, he said, "Oh, I think there might be still some revisions. It'll still be one more revision before it comes out because the clutch isn't perfect or something." I think it's perfect. I think you wouldn't want more or less clutch. I think it's great. What's so great about this kit, what I was saying, is that compared to other ones, is it's so solid. You could have this at a club, at a gaming cafe, whatever, and sling it all in a box, and it's rugged. It's tough stuff. Like, this is the thinnest bit, but because it has the thicker edges, it's just thick. These connectors are thick. I don't see them breaking off easily, which is a problem from things like Scale Electrics, slot cars. They always break off the tabs. Any sort of inferior building toy has bits that break easily. I don't see it on these. I think they're remarkably solid and well engineered. They've got just the right thickness without looking too globby and thick. Like I said, the floor is the biggest bit, and I think that works. I think it's going to look good painted up. Mainly because of this detailing, I think that breaks it up enough. I suppose it could work in a fantasy setting. For me, it's a sci-fi. But there's nothing massively futuristic on it. And I think the thing is, it's fun to build, This is a fun kit to build. And you just find yourself building it out. You can build solid buildings with it. I tried building all the pieces I have into one building. Made a kind of, 4x4 wall building of 4 stories or something. That was incredibly solid. Like, you could have thrown it at somebody and knocked them out. But it doesn't really, like, if you watch, this is me flexing it, it doesn't come apart like that. Once you built a piece, that's fine. You're not gonna, it's not gonna be some, oh well, I haven't glued it, so it's not sturdy. It's sturdy. That's awesome. You can put this in a box and be like, okay, I've got them into the pieces. So say you want this size piece, right? So you built this piece, great. You got that. You want to keep this piece. You like gaming on that, great. You put that back in a box, take it out of the box, put it on the table. That's no problem. But if you want to rebuild it, take it apart. It just comes together, comes apart, super easy, but not by accident. I'm going to paint mine. I'm going to be a bit careful with how I prime it, I think, because I don't want to get paint on the connecting points and mess the fit up particularly. So I'll probably mask that. I was thinking I'd prime it built, and I think that might be a good answer. I think I'm going to prime it black and then dry brush it. But I might prime it built and then dry brush in pieces. I think it's going to pack away well. Whether you pack it right down into its individual pieces, when obviously then you can fit it into a very small space. But even if you just pack it down into blocks that you've built and you pack them away, because they're a uniform system, they're going to sit together pretty well and not take up too much space. Whereas my problem with terrain storage is often just that you need so much space around it. Stop it from hurting itself, or the awkward shapes, playing Tetris to get them into a box. These aren't going to be awkward shapes. They're going to go in well next to each other, and they don't need packing and padding to stop them from damaging themselves. They're going to be just fine. You might chip some paint off if you're really rough with them, but you're not going to damage the actual model. That's why I think it's such a good fit for clubs and things. I think I'll be talking to our club, recommended talking to shops and stuff. I think this is a great, you're going to have gaming in your place and you want to be able to be changeable. Because that's the thing they're really pushing as well, is they're saying, like, this is, if it's WTC, ETC, whatever, they have like a certain layout. You can make that layout with these, and then if it changes or you want to play a different specification, you can change the layout of these. I wanted to get a bit of Games Workshop Sector Mechanicus terrain. Here's a section of that. You might be familiar with them. It's about the same height as them. It's not exactly the same height, but it's about the same height. Let's see if we can get that. It's second Italian was slightly taller, but if you wanted to put them next to each other, it's not really going to be any problem. You know, you want to whatever stick a ladder across. It's no problem. And I think, you know, the thing with Games Workshop terrain in general is you're going to have a lot of different looking stuff. Like my collection of Games Workshop 40k terrain is a real mishmash, and I like that. Whereas this would be much more uniform. So you might say, oh, it's a bit boring, and I think it's not your centerpiece interesting terrain. It's your general buildings, and that's definitely what I'm going to be using it for. This is going to make up the bulk of my board, and the sample set they sent me has just about enough for a full-size 40k game, in my opinion. Maybe not quite as much as you'd want, but the version on the Kickstarter is bigger, substantially bigger. So I think it's got. I'll put the graphic up here. Boom. That's how big it is, and whereas this is smaller than that, and that looks to make absolutely plenty for a big table. I'm going to play a kill team game with this next week, I hope, and it's too much for a kill team. What I've got is more than enough for a kill team table. I could fill the whole table, couldn't move. But I think you're going to use this as your regular buildings, and then if you want to have, you know, some sort of features, some interesting bits, that's where you might use your quite expensive Games Workshop terrain just to mix it up. But for me, this is like the how to get a big city fight kind of terrain. Another thing when you compare it to Games Workshop terrain is it isn't as detailed. That's just a fact. Look, you can see the detailing on these two pieces is different. It isn't as detailed, but from a painting perspective, there's something of a relief to that. This is busy, you know. You don't have to pick out all the detail, but I often tend to pick out more than I ought to, and that takes a lot of time. And when you want to do a whole table of terrain, maybe more, if you're doing it for a club or you're doing it for a gaming venue, this is going to paint up quickly and nicely, and I think there's a lot of value in that. Now I'm going to go and try and get some paint on this, get some primer on it, and see how we do, and then we'll paint it up. So here's how I prepped it for priming. I had most of it assembled, and then remaining bits I masked off the connecting pieces, and I masked off a few spots on the models with exposed connection points. I'm not sure at all that I needed to do that. So I've given it a prime. I've hit it with black primer. I did it mostly assembled. I guess that means some bits are going to be obscured, but they're going to be obscured when you use them. So I'm not sure how much I'm going to worry about that. I think probably masking it or just priming it without worrying about the masking is probably the way to go, but I thought I'd play it safe. Yeah, I guess this isn't great because then you got bits like that which are unpainted, and if you were going to use them in a position like this one is, on an edge, it wouldn't be painted. So probably priming it in bits is the way to go. But I think we're going to go along with it like this and see how we get on. That's why, you know, I'm experimenting, so you don't have to. It's taken the paint well. Something notable is I painted up, I primed some of the Games Workshop terrain that I compared it to before at the same time, and this takes paint so easily because it doesn't have lots of undercuts and complicated detail. It takes the paint a lot quicker without leaving gaps and stuff, so quite good to prime, I would say. I'm going to get some Mechanica Standard Grey. Let me get some off on there. Get your trusty dinosaur and rub off your excess paint on it. And whereas I normally do a kind of directional dry brush, in this case I'll be getting it all around because, like I said, it could either be that way up or that way up. So you don't want it to have a right way up in the way you're dry brushing it. It's going to be a relatively heavy dry brush, this one. This is going to be the main colour. Let's try a floor piece. And I'll just try dry brushing a bit in place. That's too much on that. Well, it's certainly a lot quicker doing it in one piece. Now, I'm going to get the rest of this dry brushed and see how it shapes up. Okay, I've hit everything with a dry brush. Mechanica Standard Grey over the black base. And now it's time to start adding details. I'm going to start by picking out the brickwork, because I think that will have a great effect. Alright, let's try some Gorgrunter fur. Okay, it's pretty subtle, but I think a little dry brush on top of that might really make it pop, and I think there's enough variety. So I'm going to go through and do the brickwork on everything. And here it is painted up. I painted in skulls, a Shabti, and then a wash of Agrax. I did a tiny little dry brush, like a Talon sand or something, over the brickwork, exposed brickwork. And I picked out the little metal grills at the bottom there. So not a lot. The rest is pretty simple. I've seen some people on some painted examples have painted the uprights and the floor tiles in a different colour and given it a very, I don't know, kind of prefab look. I like this more subtle version with it all just with the dark grey. Because I went for Mechanica Standard Grey, the bits which aren't painted, like for instance, let's find a bit that you can see in there, inside there, it's shiny, but it's unpainted. I haven't varnished this yet. I think because Mechanica Standard Grey matches the grey, when this is all matte varnished, I think it's going to look really good and cohesive. I'll take you a little tour around here. There's a big building. A big facade. You can build tiny little bits. And of course, there's some things I didn't realize, like you can build the walls down from the top. Like that, making really nice kind of bomb damage, blown out walls. This is not quite all of my half a table set. A full set, you can see, is really going to make quite a lot. I don't think you'd ever really want a huge wall like that. Oh, I also painted in the shutters on a couple of these solid wall pieces have shutters, which should probably be on the outside. But you can really see how it goes together into really nice terrain. Let's get some models on there and have another look at it. Now we're talking. I think it just looks awesome. I think the ruggedness of it, the practicality of it, the versatility of it. From a storage perspective, if you pack this all down to its smallest parts, it's going to pack away into a tiny space, tiny box. And it's quick to assemble. So I think you can tell that I'm impressed with this. I like modularity. That's what I try and go for when I'm building terrain. So this is cool for me. I'm super impressed with the build quality. I'm super impressed with the precision of the fit of these pieces. I think you can have a long life of putting them together, taking them apart and putting them back together without anything going wrong. I'm really impressed with the injection molded plastic. There's proper money behind this. You know, they've got proper finished copies. I guess the Kickstarter is just to take pre-orders. They've done the work on this. It's not a speculative project that might be good. This is done. They just need to manufacture them. I'm very grateful to Snot Goblin for sending more one out. If you want me to do reviews, send me your stuff. I'm in. I like reviewing, okay? It doesn't mean I'm going to say it's great if it's not. I'm not. Yeah, it's not. But this one I'm really impressed with, and I look forward to getting more of it. I want to have more of this. I want to have full big table of this and do kind of city fights and mix it in with my Games Workshop terrain, things I've made myself. I think it's an awesome base for Ruined City for any sci-fi. If you're interested, the Kickstarter is live now, today, if I've timed this right. And there's an affiliate link down here that they're giving me where I think you get $100 off. That sounds good. And I think I don't know what it does for me, but something. And it sounds good, right? So if you're interested, go and check it out in the link down here. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. I know lots of other reviewers have got copies of it and stuff. People have been trying it out. I'm super chuffed with it. It's well up my street. And hopefully next week or so I get a Kill Team game played on it and we have fun with that. And I'll post that up here. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.